It's really nice to be here. Thanks, Federico, for organizing. Thanks for the earlier speakers, Viola, Andrew, and Eliad. I think this fits really nicely. So I'm not good at doing keynote presentations, so you can read my notes along. I hope that's big enough. The title we chose was From Intuitive Playing to Absolute Relativity, How Tiny Twists Open Possibilities for Multi-Agent Collaborative Performance. It's based on work that I did together with Hannes Hölzl, with Isaac Hahn, and with Bruno Gola, so they're all mentioned here as co-authored. Bruno is also here in person. Isaac wanted to be here, but unfortunately cannot make it today. Maybe he makes it for the evening, we'll see. The general idea is that we discuss the sequence of little twists in the long-term development of the NTMI project, the non-trivial musical instrument, and see where those twists open up new perspectives. Following Andrew's talk, actually, it occurred to me that it's really about kind of noticing implicit assumptions and seeing how you can get out, whether there's ways to get around those, and how this opens different directions that you wouldn't think of, unless you sort of notice the assumption, actually. So the turning points that we'd like to cover is playing multiple processes from a single interface, replacing analytical control with intuitive influence. There's a slogan for that coming up. Opening the interface options from a single custom device, which is this one here, to multiple common devices, like these, which you will have seen very often. This kind of enables the idea to have multiple influences sources to work simultaneously on the same set of processes that generate sounds, or it could also be visual output, or it could be motion output. And the final step would be creating networks of influence with multiple such setups and seeing whether the idea transfers to other contexts as well. So that's sort of the big picture. The initial context where we started is maybe around 2002, when I started working with Hannes Hölzl, and we both developed this, or already had this pre-existing condition of liking complex generative sound processes where the best ones behave in non-trivial ways, so they surprise you even if you wrote them yourself. And ideally, you can listen to them play on their own for a while before you feel a need to do something about them. So they also feel a bit like maybe compositions or maybe playing partners with some degree of agency. So it should be fun to entangle with them, ideally. This is all inspired by second-order cybernetics, going back to Heinz von Förster's definition of non-trivial systems, which rely on feedback, and then other things like cross-modulation or so, or just really long modulation times are nice ways of sending these processes into orbits where they do stuff for a long while before you feel the need to do something. People that are interesting, that are sources of inspirations for us would include Bibi and Louis Barron, David Tudor, for feedback work. Yeah, he's amazing. Michelle Weisfish, of course. Letizia Sonami, will come back to her in a second. Rob Hordak, who's a fantastic designer, was a fantastic designer of instruments that you could also consider compositions to a degree. And Peter Blasser, who builds incredible circuits. George Lewis has this paper, Why Do We Want Our Robots to Improvise?, where he compares the systems he makes to pets with this idea that you live with them, watch them develop, you don't take them as seriously as you would human family members, but they are kind of family members. And in this context, Hannes and me prefer our sound processes to be more like cats than dogs, meaning they don't just follow your commands, but they maybe react to interaction with them with their own cat logic. at this conference I just attended, there was a beautiful talk about Vera Molnar, where she emphasized this idea of curiosity and playfulness when you work with computers, rather than forming the perfect idea and then just using the computer to realize it. And a lot of this was really about noticing possibilities. Her phrase for that was, "What if?" And this goes really nicely with a collection of references that I always like to give, which is Heinz von Förster's imperative, "I shall act always so as to increase the total number of choices," which fits beautifully with Albert Hirschman's notion of possibilism, which Hirschman is a super interesting, I guess, sociologist, economist, somewhere in between, who never got a Nobel Prize because he was across too many disciplines. It goes nicely with Robert Musil's definition of the sense of possibility. And if you want a keynote lecture that addresses this, Laetitia Sonami's lecture performance at NIME 2014 was absolutely brilliant for subverting control fantasies, which are sort of a default technological direction when you develop musical instruments involving computers. Yeah. So how can you improvise with a repertoire of such processes? We want many to choose from, so there's a repertoire of sounds that the team likes that are maybe around like 30 or so. And in 2014, in the course of the modality project, where the idea was to develop highly modal interfaces, so you could reconfigure what your one interface does while you play. While working on this, I asked myself, do I really want to learn and remember what each slider does for 30 different sound processes that I may want to play with? What if the sound process parameters were entangled in a way that every interface element, like every slider or every axis of motion, influences the sound process in a complex way? So it's always a rich change in the sound, where I never have analytical handles. There's no good words for them. So the idea of not getting caught up in the words is actually a really lovely connection here. Okay, I can show the toy version of this, kind of the state back then with a single sound. Freya is okay, yeah, and the interface that sort of shows that in the simplest form. So to show it in the abstract first with a slightly larger window maybe. So moving X and Y parameter on this 2D slider shows you that a single input dimension basically introduces a complex, goes through a random matrix of weights. So if you move just one slider, all the process parameters get moved according to this shape. And the y-axis does the same thing, but it's a different shape. So these two changes are really different. And now if I play this one sound, we don't hear it. I think it is on here. And volume is up, yes.
The sound when you put it.
Are we on the wrong cable?
But it made, when you booted the NTMI, it made the sound of
it
the
did?
speakers. Yeah.
That's weird.
Before the test,
Huh?
sounded fine.
Yeah.
Getting audio from you earlier.
It's here.
Yeah? Really? I don't hear it. Should be playing. Well, I can try to reboot and see if it is the computer somehow. No, it's not there. Okay, and here we are. And oh, alarm is a bit evil. Let's take a different one. Ah, that's possible. Yes, thank you.
I might have chosen it.
Yeah. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, we used a different one than last time. So let's see. So that should be here. No, it's on external headphones. We can switch to the other interface and see if that works.
There's only this interface connected.
Uh-huh.
And
I mean, I can switch to that interface.
sure.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Then I take these. Sorry for the little interruption.
Yeah, when you tested before,
I'll
it
get
was
there.
fine.
I thought it was sounding, yeah.
The last time it made the sound.
Mm-hmm. And the second one is here. Okay.
Are you connected already with that one?
Yes. Yes, I
I've already
can.
seen some noise coming when you plugged.
Mm-hmm. On this one now.
Yeah, on that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's see if that works. Still.
No booting sound.
Still no booting sound and no sound now.
There's something coming
Yeah.
down very low.
It is. Okay, I can turn it louder here. Okay. Okay, so back to where we were. One preset and influx. So if you change one thing at a time, that's like one pretty big multidimensional change on the sound process. And a different axis has quite a different character, and the third one is different again. So this is a pretty quick way to move in the possibility space of the parameters of the processes. And go back to the talk for a second. Here's the marketing slogan: lose control, gain influence. I handed that in as a paper at ICMC took it, NIME didn't, interestingly. Yeah, so the idea is to give up on knowing what each slider really does, but actually just playing by listening and not having verbal concepts for what that does. At this point, during the instrument design research project 3D Min, which we ran at the time, Isaac Hahn, a product design student, was wondering how to design a controller that embodies this approach, and came up with this shape, which actually came from washing dishes and thinking that plates fit really nicely into your hand. They're easy to move. So taking this and adding a motion sensor to a plastic plate and some buttons to switch configuration was the first prototype of this instrument or interface, which has since been renamed the NUFO, so it doesn't have the same name as the NTMI. We're still debating what NUFO really means, but the software became the non-trivial musical interface instrument at the time. If you want, check out. Isaac was supposed to be playing here today, but he can't make it. So check out performances by him. He does wonderful pieces with this thing, and he's the greatest living virtuoso of this instrument. When I switch to the right network here, I can also give you a brief demonstration of how this works. So. Okay, so on the back side, I can turn on and off multiple sounds. Motion changes the parameters on the sound. Let's see that we show them actually. Yeah. It's quite sensitive and quite fast with the changes. And the touchpads are also they're also continuously sensitive, so you can find lots of directions of where you want to take the sound that you're currently hearing. Okay, since we don't have much time, I'm trying to move a bit faster. So the next question was, we have a small number of prototypes of these made, but what if people have other interfaces where they'd like to try playing with this approach? So that was the next sort of twist that we did. Write bindings for standard interfaces like gamepads and fader boxes, fancier ones, really simple ones. And that made it a lot more accessible. Also testing that this runs on Raspberries and on Bellas for setups where the screen is sort of helpful when you try to understand how it works, but actually you could also just play only by listening and not see what's going on. If you're, if you choose to do that. The next little twist towards relativity happened in a piece we did for the David Tudor conference. So it took all the stuff that Tudor really likes and tried to smash it into a single piece. It's a network of 6 stations of feedback systems that has processing layers in 2 feedback loops, one going through contact sound through an object, shaker, object, contact mic. The second feedback loop is microphone, loudspeaker, kind of microphone, local loudspeaker. And then electrical cross connections between these nodes, so you have way too many, it's a feedback labyrinth basically. And for the installation mode of that piece, we wrote a really simple machine listener that just decided, is it too soft, is it too loud, is it too even? And if yes, it would nudge all the parameters a little bit from where they were to hopefully end up at a place where the listener was happier. And that is a nice way to kind of really slowly traverse the possibility space of such a setup. But it also means that you want the interface to be relative, to make changes only relative to where you already are. So that helped us understand the concept of absolute relativity, which is sort of rethinking the implicit assumption that fader position always means parameter position. If you turn that, if you try to switch that to its opposite, then change on the fader becomes change in the parameter space, which through the influx translation becomes a complex change. And that opens the possibility to play with multiple interfaces at the same time, because all these little interface steps are always relative from where you are. So it naturally wants to be polyphonic control of the whole setup of everything that's running. So it's a different idea of collective, of how collective instruments work. So now we have multiple human agents, and I don't know how much time do we still have.
We're a little over, but...
Okay, we're close to being there. I'd like to show that the flat cat is also an interesting non-human source of influence that I probably need to activate. No, I think she's here. So, this is a bit loud. So what's nice about, where is the flat cat now? Somebody hopefully still has it. Okay. Okay. The lovely thing about it is you can hear. Yeah, if you haven't held it before, try it now.
Is it okay if I bring it close to the dog?
You can try. Sometimes some dogs get scared. Others like her. Okay. Yeah. Well, because the flat cat has its own logic for when it wants to move, it sort of has its own agency. But then if you interact with it, she sort of becomes a weird interface with too much agency.
But she doesn't purr.
She does purr. She has a mode where she's vibrating a little. Sometimes she does purr. Okay, fast forward, and I hand over to you.
Well, I will be very, very quick because I know we are over the time. But with this possibility of doing everything relativity, one idea that came to my mind for why we were working together. I mean, I've been working or studying with Alberto since 2017, and we were doing a lot of things with network. And I was thinking two ways of bringing more people to interact with the system is via network. So one of the ideas was to use phones as also inputs into this network of controllers or influences. And one thing that was not mentioned, but each new controller that you put there, you can kind of decide how much influence it will have. So the flathead can have different influence. Each mobile that joins can have a different influence. And each controller can have also. Also, you can choose a controller to be in absolute mode or relative mode. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that came to my mind was if you have multiple setups of NTMI running, so I have it on my computer and Alberto has it running there, we can also share these influences through both systems. So I have my own sound processes running here, Alberto has it there, and I can say now I want to enable Alberto's system to influence mine a bit or take it out in a very granular way. So yeah, and then this became this name that for now we're calling Xflux, that hopefully will be released as a package soon. Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Yeah. Thank you.